So about 2 to 2.5 years ago, I was unbelievably lost, right? And I know I wanted to kind of reach a certain point to which I'm probably at the moment, and I didn't really know how to get there. And I've essentially been going in multiple different ways to the same sort of destination, in which I'm nowhere near this destination currently. All right. However, the one thing that I'd say is when you're kind of traveling to something like this, you kind of go in different directions like this, right? And you go from there to then maybe you go slightly closer, and then maybe you go slightly really, really far this end, and then you go maybe a bit here, a bit here, and then close to here. And that is to kind of summarize that the different decisions in which you make, obviously you don't know exactly how they're going to get you to the kind of point in which you want to be, whether that to be making a certain amount of income, maybe that's helping a certain amount of people, but typically it just all revolves around income, right? Because if you have that form of income, then you can help people, okay? And also if you have that income, then you have the freedom to travel, and then it is pretty much all down tied to money, right? So there's certain decisions which you make which will propel the rate in which you make money, okay? And I have made a set amount of those decisions to get to where I am currently, all right? And I'm going to teach you exactly why I would make some different ones to where I am right now, okay? So I started off, all right, kind of doing a lot of research. I essentially took a course, okay? This was about 2 years ago. It's called Seth Himes' like Digital Career Blueprint, all right? And I learnt God knows how much about Google ads, a little bit more about kind of Facebook ads, SEO, all right, and essentially all of the skills in which I would need to be able to start a quick career remotely, all right. And I determined from that point in which I had obtained those skills that I didn't want to work for anyone else apart from myself. And I knew this because through school, decided to not go to university simply because I just I didn't really like to listen to people that I didn't feel like they're fully knowledgeable on kind of what I wanted to learn about, right? I'm not saying in which there's not those people, but there certainly is, okay? And I don't necessarily want to be working for a boss and whatnot, and kind of, it's quite hard to explain. There's probably a lot of different psychological factors that go into it, okay? However, I then took those skills, because also I learned web design in that course as well, all right? And I took those skills in which I learned from that course, and I decided, do you know what? I know people locally that have businesses, right? And this ties into what I'm a massive advocate of, and this is working for free, especially when you're starting out, all right? So kind of working for nothing up front, all right? Which does have its downsides, okay? Not if it's necessarily people that you're close with and you really, really know, all right? However, working for free. And I made some websites for people, right? So I made one website for one lovely, lovely chap which I will not mention his name. And then I also made another one, but I didn't do it for free. Okay, so I'm going a little bit back and forth. However, I would have. Okay, if I was in a position that I would have had to do it for free, then I would have. Okay, the reason which I didn't is because I genuinely knew I had a really, really valuable skill set, and I had a lot of confidence, and I am naturally overly confident with certain things, which is quite a lot of blessing when it comes to sort of self-employment. But also I'm very much aware that that is not everyone, okay? So made a couple websites, all right? I did charge for them, okay? And with that money there, what I decided to do is to reinvest, all right? So I reinvested it into another sort of program, which is how to start a marketing agency, all right? And from then, I essentially ran my own paid ads, okay? So running paid ads, which is you show up on people's Facebook and whatnot, and then they decide to click this button, opt in, book a call with you, and then you speak to them on the call, and then you speak to them again, all right, and essentially say, look, I am going to do this for your business, all right, and then on that call, they either say yes or no, do a bit of sales, whatnot, okay, and then they either become a client or they don't, which requires a lot of skill, okay? And a lot of skill in which a lot of people do not have starting out. I had quite a few of these skills from day one, all right? And the reason being is I had worked face to face communicating with people from a very early age of about 12 to 13. I'd say I think it's probably like 13. and I had worked conversationally interacting with fully grown adults from the age of 13 who were strangers. Okay, and that not only built up my sort of like the media training, right, in terms of actually structuring my own self in my words, opinions, thoughts, and everything like that. So I was quite well versed in actually speaking, which is very important when you need to speak to people, okay? Especially when you need to sell people something, especially when it's your own business and you haven't actually got any of the case studies, reviews, testimonials, or whatever. So I was quite lucky in that regard. I wouldn't necessarily say lucky because I did have my own initiative to be able to get that job myself, okay? However, starting out with paid ads, a lot can go wrong very quickly when you're spending money in business, especially when you're not kind of starting out with, God knows, some massive lump sum from your parents to go do whatever the hell with. Okay, I didn't have that. All right, so I had to be very kind of smart in where I was investing in the start, and I decided to take that jump quite quickly. Okay. And I can get into like the fact of running those paid ads started out with trying to sell people websites, okay, in the UK to blue collar people, which I would not recommend doing because it's quite hard to sell a website because there's not really selling a website to someone who you don't even know and you are clearly showing some form of signs of lack of experience because you can't really promise an end result. You can't really promise an end goal. And you can intertwine SEO into the website, which is making that rank up higher. However, SEO is not really guaranteed. And quite a few businesses have been burnt quite badly by SEO. And if it's something you haven't really got a lot of experience in, then it's not really something you can efficiently sell someone. Okay? But then from then, changed from doing ads there, then tried that in the US. That was still quite hard to sell websites. And then the next thing, and also these drawings, and hardly even correlating to what I'm saying, but it's just helping me speak. All right? And this is just essentially what a Facebook ad looks like if you don't know. Okay? And that went from websites, okay? And then that transitioned to actually selling Facebook marketing services to these local businesses, okay? FB ads, right? And that is pretty much what I'm going to get into that for now. However, this is what I would have done differently and the kind of different offers in which I would have run and made the most of. Because one of my biggest mistakes, I believe, was I did not leverage my local area anywhere near as much as I should have, okay? Because people starting out in online business and whatnot, the classic thing is like pick your niche, okay? Pick your niche. Who are you going to work with? And what pain points are you going to solve for those people? And you get very, very versed in one niche and then everything else is much more easy. And I would actually argue that having a local area, all right, so that is your niche. Okay, and this is the place in which you are from, all right? And this is very much the same as, for example, targeting only people that install kitchens, right? So helping them out, all right? Because they are the same. They're just dotted around tons of different cities, and this is all like one niche because that's the same color, right? And then I have a much bigger pen which I need to turn on this side, and then so this is all the same niche because it's the same color. Let's say the green is people who are vets for some reason, right? And then this is like remodelers. Okay, remodel. All right. However, you can go for one big circle, which is right near where you live. All right, which can also be your niche. And the reason I'd say it is because once you're in a local area, the testimonials and the reviews and the name in which you build for yourself compounds massively, so much bigger than it does in one of these sort of like remodeling and vet niche or whatever, all right? Because it's quite hard. If you work for 3 people in that niche, and let's say you work for 3 people as a remodeler, okay? So you're helping remodelers kind of increase their platform by making them websites or running ads or whatnot. That is a tiny, 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 tiny percentage of the actual market size of people who are remodelers, okay? And that means if you work for 3 people in the remodeling niche, then you are still completely insignificant, all right? And let's say you come from like a relatively decently sized sort of city or town and wherever you're from, all right? And you work for 3 people. That is typically much, much more proportion of businesses than it would be working for like a remodeler in a massive ocean. because let's say you're targeting maybe the whole of United States or the whole of United Kingdom. Do you see what I mean? And those, if you were to work your absolute arse off for these 3 people in a niche in your local area, all right, and this is your local, and you do a really good job, and then you get 3 lots of reviews, and these reviews can be from doing whatever, right? So you can be selling whatever, and if they leave that for you, especially if there's some form of reputable business in your local area and you can leverage their names, getting your next clients are going up to person number 4, all right? And you tell them, well, look, I'm actually from here, right? I speak with the same accent from here, and I belong here. I've grown up here. I know all the roads. I know exactly who goes into your business. I've actually gone in there myself as well. Maybe I went there with mum to have a meal or whatever, right? Maybe we used you when we were doing some form of remodeling project on the house or whatnot, all right? You tell them, look, well, I work for these companies here. The chance in which they know those companies is massively increased, all right? And that means your social proof and the sort of weight, all right, that those reviews and people willing to speak good words about you hold so much more weight than they do in some kind of big blue ocean niche, okay? Because your local area is much, much smaller. And even if, let's say you're from a city such as London, all right, or New York, or Miami, or LA, or something like that, well, there's different neighborhoods, right? So you could focus really, really laser sharp on just the place in which you're from, okay? So you can be niching down as small as you really want in your local area. And the smaller that niche, right, the more weight those reviews and people speaking your name in high regard actually hold, okay? So that will make it a lot easier, all right? Rather than me working for a couple people and then saying, okay, look, let's go in the United States. Because that is just like starting out on hardcore mode, right? And that is one mistake in which I believe I made. And I think I'd be in a very different position if I focused on the local area first. And even if I was to then go to the US, metaphorically, in terms of the work in which I'm doing, then it means that I would have had a much bigger size of capital, all right? Because I would have had much more money from the work in which I would have done in that local area to start with. And I would have also had more reviews, okay? Because let's say if you have 3, and I'm still on my eraser, all right? Let's say if you have 3 reviews, right? 3 nice 5-star reviews, okay? And then they are weighted because they are local, all right? And that actually means that those reviews, maybe they're times by 3, okay? So they're times by 3 weight, all right? So you have 3 5-star reviews, all right? And I'm just going to add more stars here just to make it a little bit easier. 3 5-star reviews. But because you're in a local area and people would rather you have 3 5-star reviews of people that they know than 9 5-star reviews or maybe 8 5-star reviews of people that they don't know, all right? Then this means that these are obviously heavily weighted. And what I'm getting to is, let's say, all right, that these hold 3 times the amount of weight. This means to another person, right, to that person that they know who has actually left you the reviews, this is actually like having 9 5-star reviews, all right? Because that means so much to them, okay? Does that make sense? So, you could also have 9 actual 5-star reviews, but with a weight of 1, right? Which is the same, and I'm not saying this is obviously what they are weighted word and exactly, there's just so many variables to it to calculate, but that equals the same amount, all right? And what you could do is get your reviews in the local area, harvest them up until you have, let's say, like 20 reviews locally, all right? And in your local area, you're then looking like that for other people. It's like having a random company having 65-star reviews. However, you could go to a completely different place and you still have 20 5-star reviews, right? And even if they're weighted as 1, then they're even, like, it's fine. Like, it's still good because you're a business with 20 5-star reviews. Especially depending on which platform they're on. That's still very reputable, right? So you can take that capital, all right, and not only from a social proof perspective, you're going to be balling, right? But also with actually getting up to these 20 reviews, all right, you're going to have much more money. And with that, well, hopefully, and with that money, you're going to have more room to reinvest. And you're going to have more wiggle room in case things go wrong as well. So that's what I would say with that. Next, okay, that's the key thing. So it's a kind of where you are focusing your time, all right, geographically. And let me erase all of this. All right, perfect. The next thing would actually be what I would be offering people, okay, and how I would be offering it to people. And I don't think I went wrong with the websites, but I think there's two key things, all right? There's either websites, okay, websites, because you can build a website for the cheapest in which you probably build it is like $15 or £15, all right? Because that's the domain name, which is the place in which the website lives. And typically, those domain providers have their own sort of website builder as well. I mean, if you want to go to different platforms and whatnot, then it might be a little bit more expensive. However, you have websites, which is effectively nothing, right? And another thing which you can provide people that doesn't cost any money whatsoever for you or for them is some form of like reactivation, all right? Reactivation on the leads in which they already have. Okay, and I'll explain that in a second. So those are two things you can say to someone. Look, I can do this for you, and it will not cost you any money. All right, and they have a potential of a really, really high upside to increase the amount of business in which you have. All right, and I'm going to start with explaining websites first. Okay, because obviously if someone has a better online presence, and most businesses, they do have websites and local businesses and whatnot, but if you were to make a website that is better, all right, and more people fill out the form, okay, and that is then going to increase the flow of business there. And people roughly know, like, to an educated business owner that actually knows about business and should really be in the position in which they're in, they know that having a website is good, all right? That's just one thing they know. And if you're dealing with a business that are like, oh, well, I don't need a website because I've been working for 30 years and the business is doing okay, like, don't work with those people. Just don't, because just save yourself the headache, because there's a reason in which they are actually speaking to you, right? Provided that they are speaking to you and not just hounding them, right? And that's because they have problems in their business and they're just too stuck in their own ways to be able to see the solution to them. And by a broad means of people in which you should be want to working with, is they know that websites are beneficial, okay? And you can build them for close to nothing. And when you get good at this, all right, then you can start to charge, all right? So then you can start to make some money, which you charge maybe $250 for maybe your first website, all right, £250, $250, whatever, okay? And then you can also tell people, well, look, if I make you this website and then I'll make it for you for free, okay? As long as you just pay for like the name, which is like 13 quid a year. And then after that, you can let me know if you think it's improved your business. And if it has, then what I can do is maybe I can add on some SEO, all right? So SEO. And this can be like some simple sort of on-page SEO, right? So kind of making sure stuff's optimized, making sure there's more kind of pages with keyword optimized content, all that good stuff to make it kind of rank up a bit higher. Maybe you can add in some additional pages as well. So you can add in some pages. And maybe you can also add on like a booking system for them as well. So maybe rather than people calling up a number, you have a booking system, right? With a widget in which people can book on. And you can say, well, look, I do charge to add on that booking widget, all right? And I do charge for SEO, okay? However, this would be like an extra $250 or 250, whatever. And this would be like an extra 200 or let's say 300 or whatever. And then you can upsell people on it to start, or you can upsell people on it in the finish. So you can say, look, I'll give you a website for free, and I do charge more for extra pages, but I can make it for you for free to start out with. We'll just have a 2-page website or 1-pager, right? It will do the job. I have done stuff that is better, and this will get you more results, but you can only pay for that once you've made a return on investment from the basic website to start. Then it's a bit of a no-brainer, right? And you can almost make people feel like that you're actually doing them a favour to start and be like, look, this is also what I provide. I'll be completely transparent and open with you, all right? However, you do not need to do that for now, and I think you should just go for my free option, okay? And then in the future we can speak about that. And if you have, let's say you go to like 5 different businesses and you tell people, look, I'm starting out, I'm in the local area, I'm super ambitious, I've got a name to live up to, all right? I'm so passionate about this in general. Words can't really put into a sentence of how much I kind of want to do this for you. And I'll do it for free, just because I really want a good review, all right? I mean, does that sound like a deal? Perfect. Then in the conversation, then you can explain. So it's just a really nice dynamic, because you are really helping people, and also you're helping yourself, all right? and my laptop has just powered off. So hopefully my Loom has not stopped recording. All right, so next we have reactivation. Okay, and this is a little bit more technical, right? So I'd say this is probably a bit better for beginners as the website, all right? So beginners, right? So put that as number 1. And then we have number 2, which is reactivation. And with the reactivation, the reason why this is beautiful is quite typically sizable businesses that have some form of system collect the information of the people which have wanted their services or have previously gone through their services before. And whether that be like a name, right? So you have a name, maybe you have an email, right? Maybe you have a phone number as well. Oh, don't know what just happened there. Phone number, all right. And from that information, you can typically, whatever software that they have it in, you can export that. So you can take it out something called a CSV file, all right, which stands for comma separated values, if you didn't know. And then you can put that into another system. For example, I use Go High Level myself, which is like an all-in-one thing that does everything pretty much okay, all right. And you can text these people or email these people saying, look, we have brand new offer time, woo. And in fact, the day in which I'm recording this is currently Black Friday, right? So brand new offer with a big exclamation mark. And I'm running out of space, hey ho. Brand new offer, that says, all right, even though it is very illegible to read. Brand new offer. And you can reactivate these people to reclose them again, provided it is a service which is typically repeatable. So let's say, for example, it's hairdressers or barbers or something. I mean, people don't just get one haircut and then that's it, they're set for life, all right? If it's something that is a bit more like kitchen installation, people would typically just get one kitchen from one company. But with those companies, they typically have a lot more lead lists of people that haven't closed, right? So this can be a reactivation for people that have previously had the services that the business provides, and it also has people which haven't had the services in which they provide, all right? So you have 2 different lists, but you can still pretty much text them the same thing. For the people that are much more warm, I'd say, which have actually had the service before, assuming they've had a good experience, you can text them slightly different. I mean, look, I know you came in this long ago, all right, I'm just wondering if you did need another haircut, or if you were looking to come in for a drink sometime, because we've actually got this promotion going on, or something like that. And if you come to a business and say, look, you don't need to give me anything, all right, however, if you just give me the old leads in which you have that you're not doing anything with at the moment, I can actually get those people to come and opt back into your services. And you're just kind of making money from nothing, which is quite nice. And you can even do that for free, and then eventually upsell them on other services, right? For example, marketing or software or websites. Or you can even agree like a percentage, right? So if I was to get 10, or percentage is quite hard to track, especially with these businesses, right? And then they get contracts and agreements and all that stuff. But if it's something in your local area and you tell them, look, out of this list, if you can find out how many people are in this list, and make sure you look at the list as well, because typically, let's say if there's like 4 leads in the list, but you have like Steve, which has a misspelling for like Stev Wright, let's say his name is, okay? And he has 4 different contacts and he spells his name different each time, but he has the same phone number. That's not 4 different leads, that's 1 lead. So if there's like kind of mistakes like that, then that does play into the amount of leads, all right? Make some space. So look at the lead list, and from then, say, look, once I've actually taken quite a look and I can make sure these are legit people, if we were to get at least 10%, or let's just say just even 10 people, right? 10 people to actually close with you on what you provide, right? To actually redo the service and successfully reactivate it, then I get $250, so 250 quid, okay? So you can have like a set fee, and obviously that has to make sense. If it's like a barber, then it doesn't make as much sense with how kind of haircuts are priced in the UK or US, all right? But if it's for something that's much more sort of high ticket, let's say they're selling something about like spa treatments, right? Then obviously that kind of makes a bit more sense, because the spa treatment themselves is probably between 60 to like 150 quid. So then it makes a bit more sense economically, right? So you can kind of work something out like that. So that's another way in which you can get paid, help people for free. And those are 2 really, really good ways to get capital and to just genuinely be a good person and help local businesses in your area. And there are quite a few things that ties into it, like how would I reactivate the leads and what would I actually say and stuff like that. And that is quite a big problem for people that don't have a pre-developed skill of like communication, and that is just something you're gonna have to work out, and that is something that I'll probably make videos on in the future. But that is something that does take a lot of specialized knowledge plus common sense and also industry research. But this is like 2 seeds which have now been planted in your brain and will probably be watered over time, and I hope that they very much grow. And that's pretty much it, and I hope you found some value in it, and we'll speak soon.